Alright, so once again, make sure you have your Binance API and API secrets here, and make sure you have this client class here. And if you're not sure how to get to this step, once again, you can check out the videos in my description below where I go over this process. This also goes as well for this price updater class here. And this is just a very simple class where it just gets all the tickers from the Binance API and the Binance exchange. And once again, if you're not sure how to get to this step, you can also check out the video in my description as well. Now, the first thing that we have to do is create a class called algorithms that actually contains all of our different algorithms that we can use. And keep in mind, this code might be a little bit complicated for what we're trying to do here, but this is just so that in the future, you can also add more algorithms to this code to create your own different algorithmic trading bots. Now, the first thing we have to do is create a class, it's again called algorithms. And first things first, we need the init function. So for this, we actually won't have anything here for now. So we can just say pass. And the first indicator that we should create is once again going to be the MACD. So this code will just be how you can calculate the MACD on your own by getting values from the exchange. So once again, we can call this D self, and then first we need the closing prices of all the different tickers, and then we need the two different lines, so the short and the long line. So we can call this short window, which is the time frame that you're going to be using, and the long window. And then finally we need the signal window. So now that we have that all created, then we can actually get onto coding the algorithm itself. Now, because the MACD actually uses the exponential moving average, instead of just coding the exponential moving average here, we can create another function with its own exponential moving average algorithm. So if you wanted to use the exponential moving average, you can actually do that here. So once again, we can just call this EMA for exponential moving average. We need to give it self, and then the data or the tickers, and finally the window or the time frame, like this. And so first what we need to calculate is just the alpha. So this is just a variable for now. And if you're not sure how to calculate the EMA on your own, it's actually quite simple. Like that. And then we can just say EMA. And then for this, we can just create a list of all the data here. Like that. And then once you have this, then you can create a simple loop that goes through all the different tickers that you're given. Length of data, like this. Oh, like that. And then you can say the value of the EMA will be equal to the alpha multiplied by the data value, and you can add 1 minus the alpha. Oops. And then multiply that by the EMA, or the most recent EMA, like that. And then after this, you can just have EMA dot append EMA dot values, or value. Oops, not. Oops. There we go, like that. And finally, we just return EMA. So this is just a very simple way of actually how you can calculate the EMA. And don't worry, I'll show you all how this code works at the end with the actual prices from the Binance exchange. But for now, we can just go through and code all this out for now, and then we can go in and check this later. So then after you have all this coded, this is going to be how you can calculate the exponential moving average of any asset in your own code. So now that we actually have the exponential moving averages, then we can just simply call this function within the MACD function so that we don't actually have to calculate the exponential moving averages again. So once again, for the MACD, we have the short EMA and the long EMA. So we can simply say that short EMA is equal to self.ema, and then we can give it the closing prices, as well as the short window. like that. So this will calculate the short EMA of the MACD. And then after this, we can use the long EMA, which is going to be the exact same thing, except we're going to be giving it, scan the closing prices, but we're going to be giving it the long window instead. Like that. And finally, we can then calculate the MACD line, which is actually equal to short minus long, or short long in zip, short EMA, long EMA. So what this code does here is that it uses list comprehension, and it gets the different values from the short and long EMA and actually subtracts them to create the MACD line. Like this. And finally, after this, then we need the signal line. So the signal line will once again be self.ema of, we're going to give it the MACD line and signal window, like that. So then this will once again use the EMA function to calculate the signal. It's actually called the signal line here. Now finally, we can use these values to calculate the MACD histogram. So we could call this like this. And we can just say MACD minus signal for MACD signal in zip line signal line. So this code here is pretty much the exact same as how we calculate the MACD line, except we, instead of subtracting the short and long windows, we're just going to be subtracting the MACD and signal line for each of these values here. And finally, after all this is done, then we can just simply say return MACD line, and signal line, and the MACD histogram, like that. So that's it. That's how you can calculate the MACD on your own in your own Python and Binance function. And once again, don't worry, I'll show you how this all works in a bit. Now, after we have the MACD coded out, then we need the next part of our trading strategy, which is the RSI. Now, calculating the RSI will be slightly easier than the MACD line. So let's just create that now. So we need self, we need the closing prices, and the window. So then after this, we first need to create a price changes NumPy function. Which does remind me that for this coding, you do need to import another class called the NumPy. So we can just import NumPy as NP, like that. So what this is, this just basically allows you to use different data frames in the Python library, which just allows you to do more complicated mathematics in your coding. I won't get to the specifics here, but that's pretty much all you need to know for now. So then after this, we first need to calculate the gains. So we can just do np.where price changes is greater than 0. And then price changes and 0. And then after this, we need to calculate losses. So this will be np.where the price changes is less than 0. Changes and 0. Oops. Like that. So this will calculate on average how much gains and losses we have for every ticker that we have, or in between every ticker that we have. So then after we have the specific gains and losses, then we can just take the average gains, just equal to np dot mean. So instead of actually going through and calculating the average of each of those, we can actually just use the mean function as part of the NumPy library in the Python code. So we can just say gains, and then we can just say all the way to the very last window, like that. And then we can do average losses as well, which is basically going to be the same thing, except we're going to be using losses here to the very last window. So now we have calculated the average gains and losses for our RSI function. Finally, we can say that if average losses is equal to 0, so this is just a little check so that your code doesn't crash. Just say rs is equal to npi dot infinity. So, or this will just be a very big number if you want to think about it that way. Then else, we can say rs is just equal to average gains divided by average losses. So this RS value is actually what we're going to be using to calculate the relative strength index. And this here, we do have to set it to a really big number just in case that the average losses is 0, because we're going to be dividing by this number later on, so you don't want to make sure that it's not 0. So then, now we can use this relative strength or RS variable to calculate the relative strength index or the RSI. So we can just simply say RSI is equal to 100 minus 100 divided by 1 plus RS. And that's it. That is your RSI value. And finally, we can just return RSI. So this is pretty much it for your entire algorithms class. Once again, you have to calculate the MACD here with the EMA function here, and finally calculating the RSI value. Now, after we're done with all of this, then we need to create another class that actually checks these symbols and checks whether they give us an indication of whether we should buy or sell. So we can simply create a class called check. Once again, for the init function, we're not actually going to have anything in it for now. Oops. So we can just say pass, like that. So first thing that we have to do is check whether the MACD symbol will give us an indication of whether we should buy or sell. So we can just say definition MACD check, and once again give it self and MACD. So this is where the coding can be a little bit different for different traders. So this will depend on what exactly you're going to be looking for, whether you're looking for whether the MACD crosses above or below the 0 line, or whether you're looking for line crossovers, or whether you're looking for the length of the histogram. These things can all be different depending on the trader, but for now, for this demo, we're just going to be using the histogram. So for the histogram, once again, remember it's just the differences in between the MACD line and the signal line. So we just simply use this to determine different crossovers of the signal line. So because it is the third variable that we're returning, once again, if you see up here, it is third. In Python code, you actually start from 0, so index 0, so this will be index 0, index 1, and then index 2. So we're actually going to be using index 2 here. So we can simply code it out like this. So MACD 2, or the histogram, -2, which is the second to last value of the histogram, is less than 0, and MACD 2, -1, which is the very last value of the histogram, is greater than 0. We can basically return a buy signal like that. Oops. We need an if statement here. So basically what this code checks is if the MACD histogram crosses from below 0 to above 0, then we can determine that it's a buy signal. And similarly, we can also do the same thing for if it crosses below. So once again, we're going to be using the histogram, -2. Say if that was above 0 and most recently it crossed to below 0. Then we can return a cell. And finally, if none of these things happen, then we can just say return none, like that. And once again, like I said before, you can create different checks on your own and different signal indicators on your own. However, this is probably one of the more easier ones that I'll just be using in this demonstration. Once again, you can also check whether the signal line crosses below 0 or above 0, or where exactly the values of the signal lines cross at, to get a better understanding of where the market is currently. However, for now, I'm just going to be using this as a demonstration so that you can understand how to code your own algorithmic trading bots. So once again, that's all we're going to do for now. And because we also have the RSI signal, we also need to create an RSI signal check, which is going to be much easier than the MACD. So we can just call this RSI check. Once again, give it a self and the RSI value. And pretty much this is actually so simple, we can just do it in one line. So we can just say return sell signal if RSI is greater than or equal to 70, which is typically the value that is used to determine whether it's in an overbought condition. And then we can say else buy signal if RSI is less than or equal to 30, which is typically what an undersold signal is. And finally, if none of these things occur, so that means the RSI is either ranging in between 0 and 70, then we just say else none, like that. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need for this. So after both of these classes, then finally we can actually get to actually coding out the algorithmic trading bot. So we can just call this algo bot for now. And first things first, we do need to create an init function for this. So init self and variables. So before we get coding on the actual init function, let's discuss what parameters you're actually going to be needing to give this bot for it to, well, function. So once again, like all the other codes that I've created before, we can create a bots dictionary. We'll just call it like this. And so the first thing, once again, we're going to need is just a name for it. So we can just call it algo bot. We can just say 1 for now. And so what this was going to be is a dictionary inside a dictionary, which is slightly different than what we've discussed before. So once again, within this dictionary, this is going to be the key, and then this is going to be the items or the values that's related to this key. So then within this, then we need to give it, once again, the symbol, or what symbol you're going to be trading. And for this example, we can just say Bitcoin once again. And then we can say what value of money we're going to use. So just be something like this. And for this, let's just say $100 for now. Once again, make sure you always start with a smaller amount before putting a lot more money into these bots, just to make sure that it is trading how you want it to trade. And finally, we can just say what indicators we're going to use. So once again, for this example, we're using MACD. So we also have to keep in mind that we're going to need to give it the values that it's going to need to be able to trade. If you recall, the 3 variables that we are going to need is the short window, the long window, and the signal window. And the closing prices, but we'll actually get the closing prices from the Binance exchange or from our price update class, so you don't have to worry about that for now. So for this, once again, we need the short windows, so we can just say 12 for now, which is very typically used, and 26 for long window, and for the signal window, we can just say 9, which is the very basic version of the MACD, but you can change this to whatever values that you actually want to trade with. After this, then we also need to give the variables for the RSI, which let's just say 9 for now, which is also very typical. So then after all this is pretty much all the variables that you're going to be needing to give to your bot. Once again, this is just a very simple version, and you can actually add more of these algo bots as well later, but for this demonstration, I'm just going to be using this one. And so now that we understand what variables that we're going to have, then we need to be able to give it the variables that we're going to be needing. So up here, let's also give it a key. And so for the init function, for the actual bot itself, first we can just create a simple init function of self.key is equal to the key that we're going to be giving it. So this will just be the name of the bot, and for this example, it will literally just be algo1. And then after that, we can create self.symbol once again, just so you know how many symbols are you going to be needing. So once again, this variables right here is going to be this dictionary right here. So because of the dictionary, then we need the actual keys and the value to get the actual value. So say variables symbol, like that. And then finally, we need to create a self.checks. So this will just determine which indicators we're going to be using and how we're going to be using it. So key is equal to the value. And then once again, we can use comprehension to code this out. So we can just say for index key value and enumerate variables dot items if index is greater than or equal to 3. Now this might seem a little confusing, but all this is just determining which indicators that we're actually going to be using. So if you have more than one indicator, then you can actually create more. But for now, this just takes the key in or the value here of MACD and RSI, and then we just give it the values of each. So for the MACD, we would give it 12, 26, and 9, and for RSI, we'll give it 9. And this index 3 right here is that it just skips the first two because these first two aren't actually indicators, which is the symbol and the amount that you're going to be using. So we're just skipping these two keys in the dictionary and then just going straight to these. And finally, create self.signals is equal to, once again, key, and then just none for key and self.checks.keys. So what this does is just creates another dictionary of the different signals. So for now, each of these indicators, which is the MACD and RSI, have none as their related items. However, if once again we do get a return of either a buy or sell signal from up here, then we can actually give it to the value of that key, which once again I'll explain how you can do later on. So then after all this is done, then we can just remember to give it our self.use, which is once again variables, and then use like that. And then once again, we just need a few more variables in here. So we can just say for now, self.bot is equal to none. Self.amount is also equal to none. And what this does is just keep tracks of how many buys and sells the bot has made, and also just like gives us an update on how the bot is doing overall. And then once again, we can create self.transactions. So this will just tell us how many total times has bought and sold, and self.profit. So all of these two variables down here aren't actually needed. They're just very useful in backtesting your bot and determining how well it's actually performing in the market. So after all this, that is your init function here. And now we can move on to our main function. So once again, we'll have our main function here, self and new price, like usual. So the first thing that we need to do is determine the interval that we're actually going to be getting the price at. So we can just say client.kline interval. Now the shortest time frame that you're actually going to be able to call is the 1 minute time frame. So we can just say 1 minute here. like this for now. Now this will be a little bit annoying to check later on, but I'll show you how you can check this in a bit. And then we also need to give it the limit, which is how many tickers that you're going to be getting at one time. So the max amount is 1,000, so we're just going to say 1,000 for now. And then after all this, then we actually need to get the different tickers, or it's also known as the K lines on the Binance exchange, so I'll just call it K lines for now. And we just say once again client.get historical K lines, and then you'll give it the symbol interval, and limit is equal to limit. Let me fix this here. This will be client, and then this will actually be self.symbol. Believe, yep, like that. And that will be how you can actually get your different candles from the Binance exchange. And finally, because we only need the closing prices from these different tickers, we're just going to be isolating those closing prices as well. But if in the future you do have volume-based trading indicators such as like VWAP, then you can use these K lines here instead of the closing prices. But for now, we actually don't need the K lines just yet. So we're just going to isolate the closing prices. So we can just say float K lines, and it will be at the 4th index is the closing prices. For K line in K lines, like that. Oh, this parentheses should not be there, like that. All right, there you go. So after you have this, then we need to determine the different indicators and how we can check those separately. So if we can say if MACD indicator is in the self.checks dictionary, then we can say the parameters will be equal to self.checks.get MACD. So this will just get the different parameters that we're giving it down here and get that from the self.checks dictionary. So now we have the parameters. First, to just check it, once again, we can just have a simple print function here. We can just call this MACD, and then to print it, just say algos.macd closing prices params. Just give it the first, the 0nx parameter, as well as the first one and the second one, or 1, 2, and 3. So don't worry about this right now because we actually haven't created the algorithm class or called the algorithm class outside, which I'll get to at the end. But this will just print out the different MACD values just so you can see how it works. After this print function, then we can just have signal to check dot MACD check, and then in this we can literally just copy and paste this exact same thing here that we gave it and just put it down here instead. And then just make sure we have enough closing parentheses around here. Like that. And once again, for this check and algos here, this will be called actually outside of this AlgoBot class. So we can just put it up here for now. So once again, we first need to call these classes. So we could just say algos is equal to the algorithms class. We're calling the algorithms class. I don't know why is this. Oh, actually we have to call this at the end. Never mind. So let's put this down here. Algos is equal to algorithms, and then check is equal to the check class. And I have to misspell these. Oops. Like that. And there we go. Alright, so now this should all be working. And don't worry too much about this because, once again, it won't be none once we actually run the class. So finally, now that we have the signal check, so this will whether check if it's a buy signal, a sell signal, or not a signal whatsoever. So now after we have all of this, then we can just say self.signal. So this will be the dictionary that stores all the different signals, and we can just say for the MACD is equal to whatever the signal up here will be. And now after we have this, then we can just say the same thing for RSI. So if RSI is in self.checks, then we can once again give it the different parameters that we're gonna have. Params is equal to self.checks.get RSI, like that. And then once again, we can just have another simple print statement here that will once again just print out the RSI value just to make sure that we're actually calculating it correctly. So algos.RSI closing prices and params, like that. Because the RSI only has one parameter, we can just give it the 1 instead of what it is up here. So now after you have this print statement, then once again we need to calculate or check the symbol. So once again, it will be very similar to what we had above. So it will just be check RSI check, like that. And then once again, we can just copy and paste this line here, right here, like that. After this, then we just do self.signals RSI is equal to signal, like that. So once again, don't worry too much about this. This is just basically saying that we can't actually assign none to none, but that doesn't actually matter. So don't worry too much about that right now. And now we can actually just print out the dictionary once again just to check. So we can just print out self.signals, like that. And now, after we have all the different signals for these different trading indicators, then we need to actually determine whether they're buy or sell signals. So we can create something called unique values. And this will just be a set of the signals. So what a set does is that it doesn't allow any duplicates. So we can actually check whether they're all buys or all sells, or some of them are nones and stuff like that. So now if the length of the unique values is actually equal to 1, so that there's only one signal, so that could be either buy or sell or none. And then we can check, and buy is in the unique values, and we also need to check that self.buy is equal to none. Then we can determine that all the indicators actually gave us a buy signal, which means that we can actually go ahead and place a buy order and give it new price. So we actually haven't created this function yet, but I'll create it after this main function is done. And then now we also need to check if, once again, the length of the unique values is equal to 1, and instead of a buy, it's just sell orders in unique values. And we also need to check that self.bot doesn't equal none. So this will just make sure that we have already bought one, so that we can actually have something to sell. Then we can go ahead and place a self.sell order, like that. And once again, give it new price. There we go. And finally, if none of these parameters are true, then we can just simply pass. So this will be our main function here. Now finally, then we can move on to our buy and sell orders. So once again, buy order, this, give it self and new price, like that. And we can just simply say, once again, buy order. I already created this code multiple times in my past, so I'll just go through this really quickly. So once again, it will just be a market buy order. And then the symbol of it is going to be equal to self dot symbols, and the quantity, or should be self dot symbol, and the quantity will be equal to float of decimal self dot use divided by the new price to determine how much in Bitcoin we're going to buy instead of how much in USDT we're going to buy, and then dot quantize decimal, and then 0.0001, which is the lowest amount that Binance will take, like that. And then finally, we need to just make sure that this rounding actually round down, like that. So this will just make sure that it rounds down. And one more thing is, for now, we can just comment this out once again, just so that we can once again test our algorithmic trading bot instead of actually playing these by orders. And we can, so after we have this done, then we can say self amount is equal to float of pretty much this exact same thing right here, like this, just so we have the exact amount that we bought at. And then we can also say self dot bot is equal to new price. So this would just be a way to store what price we actually bought the asset at. So this is pretty much it for our buy order. And once again, you can have different print statements here to just check what exactly you're gonna have. So you just say print self dot key bot self dot amount at self dot bot. So this will just print out, let's say algo bot 1 bought 100 at 2,700 or something like that. So this will just be an easy way to check whether your bot is working or not. And then after this, then we also need to create a sell order. And once again, we can just give it the self parameter and new price parameter, this, and then we can just say sell order is once again equal to client dot order market sell, and then symbol will be equal to self dot symbol again, and the quantity of this will just be equal to self dot amount, like that. And now after this, then we can once again comment this out just for now, so that we can actually test our bots. And then we also need to keep track of our self.transactions, which is plus equal to 1. So this will just tell us that the bot has bought once and sold once. And then now we can calculate our actual profit. So first we should calculate the round profit, which will be this, and then we can just say new price minus self.bot, and you can multiply that by self.amount divided by self.bot. And after this, you also should make sure that you multiply it by the trading fees, or however many trading fees that you're going to have. Because this is different for each exchange, and this is also different for the different pairs on the Binance exchange, I'll be skipping this for now. So, but I will write this down here as a comment just so you know. So you can do 1 minus selling fee. And this will also be true for how much you would be buying up here too. So just make sure you keep track of that. So this will also be true right here. And then after this, then we can just say self.profit is equal to, or plus round profit, and self.use, which we can also update, and we can add self.profit to this, or round profit to this. And what this does is that instead of just always buying at $100, every single time it makes a profit, it will actually take that profit and then add it into the next buy order, so that this bot will actually have self-scaling. Like that. And then finally, we can do self.bot is equal to none. So this will just reset the entire bot. Once again, we can have a print statement down here. It'll just simply allow us to check what has bought and what has sold. So we can just say, self.key. Like that. Sold for, and then we can just type in the round profit. Like this. So that's pretty much it. This is going to be our buy order and our sell order from the Binance Exchange. And now we just need one more class, and this will just be our price check class, which will literally connect us with our price updated class up here and allow us to connect to the Binance Exchange and get the different prices for when we're going to need it. So once again, we just have definition here. It will be called price check, and this is literally the same as all the different bots I've had created in the past. So I'll once again be going over this very quickly. So self and tickers like that, and then down here you can just say for ticker in tickers symbol check is equal to ticker of the symbol, like that. And then after this, then we can just say if symbol check is equal to self.symbol, then we can just say new price is equal to float of ticker and the price. There we go. Just like that. And I don't know why my computer is being so laggy, but oh well. And then after all this, then we can just say self.main with new price, like that. So that's it. That's pretty much how you can create your own algorithmic trading bots. So just to go over it one more time. Once again, you have your client and your API and your API secrets up here. And then you have this price updated class here. That'll actually get the prices from the Binance Exchange. And I actually left out a little piece of this code because I did want to come back to it, which is the time.sleep portion. So now because we have a 1 minute interval, we do need to make the time.sleep 60 seconds. If you do make it 5 minutes, let's say, or an hour, so that you can get more accurate indicators, because indicators are more accurate on longer time frames, then you can actually change this value to the exact value that you need. So let's say if you want it every 5 minutes, then you can make this 5, right? If you want it every hour, then you can just multiply this by 60. So just keep that in mind. And this price updated class, once again, just connects to the Binance Exchange and gets all the different ticker information that we can then do to all of our different classes. And this algorithms class here will just allow us to calculate the different indicators that we are going to be using. So for this example, once again, we have MACD, which calculates the short, long, which then is used to calculate the MACD line and the signal line, and the histogram, which we can then return. And it uses the exponential moving average, or the EMA, which we can actually calculate up here, like this, just separately. And after all of that, then we actually have the RSI, or the relative strength index, that we actually calculate down here, like this. And once again, if you do have more indicators that you want to use, you can actually add this to this algorithms class as well. I will also go over more indicators that you can add in my future videos, so make sure you subscribe and look out for those. And this next class here is just a check class. So this basically takes the values from the different indicators and checks whether we should give it a buy or sell signal. And once again, for the MACD, there are a ton of different indicators or different trading strategies that you can use, but for this one, we're just checking whether the histogram crosses above or below the 0 line, and we can use that to create trading signals. And for RSI, once again, we can just create a sell signal if it's above 70 or a buy signal if it's below 30. And finally, this AlgoBot class takes all of that information and puts it together to allow you to actually create an algorithmic trading bot. So what this does, once again, is that it has an interval here, and it connects to the Binance client, and it gets all the different tickers for the symbol that you're going to be trading with. And then it will give it all the information that it needs to create buy or sell signals, and finally, it will use those signals to generate buy and sell orders down here, like that. So this is just a very simple way of how the bot can work. And finally, to check this bot, we do need to create a little bit more code just so we can run it. So once again, we have this bot dictionary down here. We also need to create a crypto bots dictionary as well, like this. And then we just need to create a simple loop. So for key in bots, bots dict dot keys, like that. And then what we can do first is just print it out, just so we can check it. And we can say instance is equal to algorithm bots dict, and give it the key. And we're not just giving it the variables either, we do also have to give it the key itself, so we can just simply say key and the bots.key, like that. And then we once again need to add this instance to our CryptoBots dictionary. Key like this, instance like that. So now, after all this, then we can once again call our price updater class, or initiate our price updater class, and then give it the CryptoBots dictionary, just like that. And then we can just simply print start here. And then we can just say price updater dot update prices. Just like this. And then for now, let's just say time dot sleep. Let's just say 61 seconds, just so we can see how the bot runs. And then we can just say price updater dot stop. So now this should be the entirety of the code. Alright, so very quickly, I actually meant that this index is supposed to be 2, because once again, we only have 2 of them right here. Alright, so now let's try running this code. And what you should see is that it will print out all the different MACD values as well as the RSI values, and then it will also give us the specific indicators or signals that they're giving us. Alright, so now let's try running this code. Alright, and here we go. So this printed out all the different MACD values. So as you can see, some of them are negative, some of them are positive, which is perfectly fine. And you can also notice here that there are lists within the lists, which means that, just as we said it would, it actually didn't print out all the values because there are too many. I think there's about 3,000 different values because we have the MACD line, the signal line, and the histogram, which are 3 values, and then we have a limit of 1,000. So I think it's actually trying to print out 3,000 different values, which we obviously can't do. And once again, you can also lower the limit if you want, but I mean, there's no reason to not have 1,000 really, as long as your computer can handle it. And once again, you can see here that it also prints out the RSI value, which right now is actually 52.167. So once again, if this value is above 70 or if this value is below 30, that means that, well, it will create overbought or undersold values. And as of right now, the MACD line actually says to sell, which means that the histogram actually just crossed 0. And once again, of course, the RSI would return none because this value here is neither above 70 or below 30. Alright, so I just let it run for a bit, and as you can see, it has printed multiple times. So this right here actually just shows how the MACD has none, and the R size once again also none, just because it's still at 52. But basically, there's just a very simple and easy way to check. Once again, it prints at different values. And this is just a very simple way to check whether your bot is working and how it could run in the future. Once again, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in different trading bots that you could add to your portfolio, make sure to check out my channel and make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all next time. Happy trading.